Welcome to our third episode of Backyard Brothers. We are excited to be here. It's another early Saturday morning for me, but it looks nice outside, and we are excited for Christmas here. So, Dustin, Cody, any initial thoughts before we jump in? My only thought about Christmas is the Rams got an early Christmas present by opening up a Baker Mayfield who could actually play. Uh, that 98-yard drive with no timeouts and 30 whatever seconds it was to score a touchdown, that was really, really impressive.
Yeah,
That
you
was,
can call it a once in a lifetime because you can bet he's never going to do it again.
I would imagine so. Yeah.
yeah, I was going to say impressive. He comes in on Tuesday, he plays on Thursday, and he scores more points than I think the Broncos have in the last 7 games. And so that's really impressive. Is he going to do it again? Probably not. And Baker's not back. He just had a good night.
Yeah, I agree. But okay, we have a little bit of a different format here. Not too much, but Cody is going to start us off with a memory, and we will go from there. We'll talk about that, and we'll hit our topics.
All right. So I was thinking about a different memory that or a memory that I wanted to think about, and my wife immediately pitched in and said, "What about that Beast Quake memory?" And I said, "That's a great idea." So I want to talk just a little bit about that. If you're not familiar with that, the Beast Quake memory is in relation to Marshawn Lynch, who is nicknamed Beast Mode, and it was happening in 2000. It was 2010 season. It was 2011 when it happened. It was the wild card playoffs between the Seahawks and the Saints. It was fourth quarter, 3 minutes, 39 seconds left in the game. Seattle was up by 4. It was a 67-yard touchdown run through 9 missed tackles. And I'll repeat that, 9 missed tackles. So I hope you guys have seen that already and watched that link in the video. If not, please go watch it. It's amazing. The subsequent fan reaction registered a 1 or 2 magnitude earthquake. That is just insane and amazing to say the least. And when I remember watching it, when I've seen the highlights of it, I just can't believe it. Every time I watch it, he ran through 9 sure tackles. Well, I should say maybe 6 or 7 of them were sure tackles that somehow he was able to stiff arm or throw them off of him or just run through them, and 2 or 3 of the others were honestly just kind of bad tries, attempts at a tackle, and he just ran all the way, jumped to the end zone, and it was amazing. So it just makes me want to see things like that again. I think the closest we've gotten to it is maybe Derrick Henry and some of the things that he's done. So I want to hear your guys' reactions on that.
Um, I remember watching it live, and there's a little bit of context here. The team they were playing was the defending Super Bowl champions, the New Orleans Saints. They had won the Super Bowl the previous year, and Seattle also was the only team to still to this day to win their division with a losing record. They were 7-9 that year, meaning the NFC West was horrible. Although the NFC South could make a run for them this year, but so you have a losing team hosting the Super Bowl champions, and they had played maybe 4 weeks prior, and the Saints destroyed them, and so everyone thought that was going to happen again. So just a little bit of context there, but I remember watching it live at that point and thinking, okay, he's going to go down. He's going to go down. Why isn't he going down? Because I'm cheering for the Saints at this point. And so maybe that's a little bit different take than Cody. But so I watched this clip while researching this at least a dozen times, trying to analyze how this happened. And every time I watched it, it amazed me even more. This is a man blocking scheme from the offensive line. So that means they were each assigned to a man, and the right guard pulls, he tries to kick out a linebacker. And I say try because the line play was bad on this play. 4 of the 5 linemen whiffed on their blocks, including that pulling guard. He didn't get to the linebacker. The linebacker filled the hole just like he was supposed to. And one lineman was somehow well behind the play. The only offensive lineman was Russell Okung, the left tackle, who did what he's supposed to do. But here's the thing, it didn't matter. Marshawn Lynch said, I'm just going to do it myself. And he ran through the Saints defense. He stiff-armed Tracy Porter all the way to the ground. that was not initially a good play. I mean, it was supposed to be stopped for about a 2-yard gain, but he willed himself and the Seahawks to the end zone. And as he was running through the defense, it inspired the rest of the Seahawks. You can see all 10 other guys running with Lynch, throwing blocks, including Matt Hasselbeck is all the way down the field, all 5 of the offensive linemen. He shamed the entire Saints defense on the play, and then he gave it one last FU by grabbing his crotch as he dove into the end zone. So
Yeah, it's just a fun play to watch. You know, it's like you said, in the NFL, usually the reason that running backs are able to do well is because they have great blockers. In this case, it was just him just bouncing off things. I think if for some reason you had to rename it from Beast Quake, you'd rename it to like pinball, because you just ding 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 just off of everyone and just all the way to the end zone. And it's just exciting to watch. And it sealed the game, right? Seattle went on to win, sealed the game, and sent them forward into the playoffs, and kind of cemented Marshawn Lynch, who was already a popular and a great running back at this time, but definitely cemented his reputation as beast mode going forward through to the end of his career.
great. Any other thoughts about Beast Quake? Okay. So our first topic beyond this is we're jumping over to the NBA. A lot of today is going to be covering basketball, NBA. And so the Golden State Warriors, these are the defending NBA champions. They've won 4 out of the last 6, I think, championships. But this year they are struggling quite a bit. If the playoffs started today, they would technically be in the play-in game, but they're struggling. And they have Stephen Curry, who we talked about last week, is probably maybe still the best player in the NBA. They added more to their team. They had Klay Thompson still, they have Draymond Green still, but what is going on? Why are they struggling so much to win games? Why don't we? So I'll introduce, and then you guys take it, and I'll finish it out. That's how we'll do these when we introduce. So
Right,
I'll pass it to you guys.
So looking at stats, right, compared to the NBA team stats. So they're 13-13. They're at 500, which puts them at 11th in the Western Conference right now. Which, if we're talking about the strength of the Western Conference, if 500 puts you in the bottom 5, that's a strong conference. But then looking at these stats compared to the rest of the NBA, their points per game, they're 4th, and points allowed, they're 26th. So they're scoring really well, 117 points per game, but they're allowing just as many points per game as they are. And then looking at their win-loss and their fouls, they're committing 22 fouls per game. And in the losses, it's 24 fouls per game compared to 21 in wins. And so you're just, compared to your losses and wins, you're allowing potentially 6 or 7, 8 different more free throw attempts. It's a lot of points. And so this is cleaning up the defense. If the Warriors want to get back into the playoffs and cement themselves, they need to clean up their defense, because they got the scoring prowess. That's absolutely pure, but they can't stop other teams from scoring.
Yeah. Honestly, a lot of what I was going to say kind of is reflecting what you just said, Dustin. And these stats, they may be a little off. I was looking at them a little while ago, but I was seeing that they foul almost 23% of the time. And you can't expect to win a game when you're fouling that much. You can't. Another thing is I was noticing that if you watch Draymond Green and his playing, something seems off about him this season. He's not on it. He's not making the blocks that the blocks that he usually does. He's not doing great in his shooting. So I'm not sure if it's centered around Draymond, that kind of, he being such a pivotal player on the team and he's not playing very well. I'm not sure if it's centered around him, but something is going on with Draymond Green. I don't know what it is, and they're fouling a lot. The good thing they have going for them, obviously, is, they have a few good things, but they have Steph Curry, who I still think is the best player in the league. And when you have him, the scoring's happening. And so I think they will get back on track, but maybe that's what's going on.
I think their whole problem was kind of summed up by, was it last night or 2 nights ago? They're ahead beating the Jazz in a game that is pretty much decided, and they lose it. The Jazz, I think, score what was it, Dustin? Like 12 points in the last minute or two, and suddenly Stephen Curry is wondering what just happened. The Warriors had that in the bag and they lost. I think we're talking about all of the same struggles here. I was going to mention turnovers as well is a huge thing. They're just being careless with the ball. Dustin, you mentioned fouls, and that's another issue with it, that's still being careless. I think they're turning it over an average of about 17 and a half times per game, and that is the second worst mark in the NBA.
That's high.
Yeah, that's really careless. I kind of think about this the same. We talked about the Buffalo Bills last week, because I'm just thinking they're going to figure this out. I'm not really, if I'm a Warriors fan, I'm still not that worried, because it's the Warriors. They're going to figure it out. But up to this point, they haven't done that.
Yeah, you hope that they figure it out, because it's fun to see the Warriors' high-powered offense, high-powered defense do well, and look at all the championships that they've won. Yeah, 4 titles and 7 seasons. Not only is their offense good, but their defense has always been a top 10 defense. So in order for them to get back to the playoffs, they're going to have to clean up the defense, clean up the fouling, clean up the turnovers. Otherwise, these teams are just going to continue to run over them in the Western Conference. All right, so moving on to our next topic about the future of the NBA. We want to talk about the most likely first draft in this next year's draft coming up this summer. Victor Wembenyama. Many people have said he's the most anticipated NBA prospect potentially of all time. Some background on him: he's 7'3", about 240 pounds, but has all of the skills that you would typically see out of a 6'3" point guard. He can shoot the 3 ball. He can dribble, handle the ball really well, get to the rim extremely well. This is just unheard of. And so wanted to get some thoughts on what you think about him entering the NBA, and are teams wanting to be last in the league in order to get a shot at that number 1 pick in order to grab him? Let's get some thoughts there.
I think I was doing a little bit of research on him and looking at his, stats and things like that, watching some highlights just the other day as well. And he's sinking threes like Steph Curry. He's insane. He can't be blocked. And I could definitely see how he's, the most anticipated prospect. And if I was the, manager of a team and I was already doing bad, I would tank to grab him. I think that'd be the best decision for them at that point, especially if you're not going to be the playoffs this year. Might as well just start sucking it up now and go get him. That's my take on it. So I think whoever gets him will very well may have the fastest turnaround next year.
So first of all, we can't comprehend the type of player this is. There simply are no precedents. He's 7'3" point guard. You look at tall point guards in the past. The Magic was 6'9". Ben Simmons is 6'10". That's not the greatest example, but but this guy has the length and shot blocking of Rudy Gobert and the ball skills of Chris Paul and the 3-point shooting of Jamal Crawford. I think he will certainly be the first overall pick. That being said, I'm not sold on his NBA compatibility. At 7'3", and he's only, I think I read 230 pounds. It makes him a string bean of a player. He's not strong. He has no post play, period, on offense, despite his shot blocking skills on defense. He'll be bullied in the post by guys like Joel Embiid and big guys like that. I worry about injuries as well. You think about really tall, thin players. Yao Ming has spent a lot of time injured because of that, and his stats aren't really that impressive to me. I mean, Cody, you were saying the highlights that we were watching. Of course, when there's a highlight tape put forward of him, you're only going to see the good stuff. But so you look at the stats and the things like that, and he's only averaging about 6.5 points, only 3.8 rebounds. When you're 7'3" and you're averaging less than 4 rebounds a game, I don't like it. Less than 1 assist. Obviously, averaging 2 blocks a game is good. And he's going to continue to do that. He's going to be a really good defensive player in the post, blocking shots. He's only a 66% free throw shooter. So, I mean, that's not horrible, but you'd like him to be closer to that 75%. And you said he can make it like Steph Curry, but he's only averaging barely over 30% from 3. I do not trust him as a legitimate NBA player, and I would not tank for him.
Yeah, watching highlights and looking at him, I think, like you said, there's no precedent. I think the closest precedent would be Kristaps Porzingis. Similar size, similar build, similar shooting capability. And his first few years with the Knicks, I was like, wow, this is great. And then I don't know if any of us can actually say, hey, what team is he on again? He's really fallen off. But then looking at what I've seen and looking at from an NBA scout perspective, there's 2 different categories that I think make up a great NBA player. The natural physical gifts, such as size, length, God-given talent, and then the work ethic and the intelligence. Those are the 2 separate things that make up a great NBA player. And every NBA player has to have both. You have to be physically gifted and you have to be smart about the game. Watching Wembenyama, he has that physical gifts, obviously, extremely talented, extremely long. His wingspan, by the way, is 7'11". He has almost an 8-foot wingspan. But what I've seen is such on rebounding, he doesn't box out. He relies on his length to get rebounds. Shot blocking, he does not take good defensive position. He relies on his length to get blocks. In the NBA, all of these guards, they know exactly how to play against size. They get up close to you, they take away the length. And Wembenyama, if he doesn't fix that, if he doesn't learn how to play defense, he's going to be fouling out in the first quarter of every single game. They're gonna take advantage of that and completely take away his length. And it's gonna be an embarrassment. And so I hope that he takes these physical gifts and he doesn't squander them, that he adds intelligence. He adds that hard work ethic in order to learn. And if he does, then yeah, he could be really good. I think about Giannis. He came in with all the pure physical gifts, and it was a struggle for a couple years. And then look at the work ethic and the intelligence that he's added, where now he's knocking down shots, he's knocking down 3-pointers. He's defensive player of the year, became one of the best defenders and one of the best passers, where he's potentially the best player, one of the best players in the NBA, 2-time MVP. And he's gotten that through hard work ethic and intelligence.
And one of those things about Giannis that you just mentioned, like he came into the league as a string bean too, and he put on like 40 pounds of muscle as well. And that's what I would want to see Wembenyama do, because he's such a little guy. And I'm worried about him being bullied by those bigger, stronger players in the post. Joel Embiid being the one I keep thinking of. But
just as a last thing, real quick to add to that, though, is I still stand by what I said. He's 18 years old right now. He's gonna be 19 in January. He's young. He's really young, and so I think there's a lot for him to learn and get better at. And he's gonna, I mean, with the time he still has to go, with the coaching that he can receive, with the build he can get, I still think that he can, develop into someone who really can make a turnaround that fast in the first year, just because of his age and experience, and he can get more experience that quickly.
And I certainly hope that he does. I want to see the type of player that he can become, and it all relies on him. How hard is he willing to work? How much is he willing to learn to become that type of player he needs to be? All right, moving on. So, still with the NBA, let's talk about the Sacramento Kings. So we're talking about the Warriors. Are they struggling? What's going on? Looking at the Kings in the Western Conference, they're currently fifth with a 14-10 record. Doing well. The Kings haven't been in the playoffs in 20 years. They've been the laughing stock of a team. So is this the year that the Kings finally make it back to the playoffs? So looking at some of the stats for them, very similar stats comparing to the Warriors. They are second in points per game. They get just scoring amazingly. 20th in defense, points allowed. So a kind of a similar thing where they're allowing teams to score, but then looking at their foul rate, significantly lower fouls, significantly lower turnovers. This is a team that is doing really well. And if they can keep it up for, through April, then yeah, this is absolutely going to be a playoff team, in my opinion.
Yeah. I mean, there's a long way to go, right? There's still 3.5 months. Injuries could happen, things like that, but highlighted by the Warriors and Lakers incompetence playing basketball. And I think there seems to be a gap that the Kings are really filling really well. And like you said, they sit at fifth. De'Aaron Fox has been really good for a few seasons, but he is putting on his absolute best year right now. This is an all-star performance. He's going to be an all-star, I think. He's averaging about 25, 26 points per game, another 5 rebounds and 6 assists. They have Domantas Sabonis there, who's doing really well as well. They have Harrison Barnes. They have Malik Monk. And they have guys that are really putting together a team that I don't think the Kings have really had. They've had some good players, but they really haven't had a team. And these guys are playing like it. As you mentioned, they're really well coached right now. They're not turning it over very often. They're not fouling that much. They know how to close out games, which has been a big problem. They seem to finally have a team that can get over that hump.
Yeah, I'm not sold, honestly. As you guys were saying, I acknowledge everything you guys said, that they're doing really well. They have all these things going for them. But as I think Dustin said already, there's still a long way to go. And there's a lot of good teams in the Western Conference that they have to keep doing better than. And having not been in the playoffs for 20 years, or about 20 years, a little less than that, I think. I don't know if they can shake it, in my opinion. I think that with New Orleans, Memphis, Phoenix, and with Dallas creeping up on them, I think it's I don't think they'll be able to do it. I think that they're going to be great. I think they're a good team, but they're not going to be able to stay in the playoffs. Those injuries are going to happen, or something that's going to force them out. The curse, I guess you could say it, will linger there.
I appreciate that topic. Dustin, do you have more to say before I rebut?
I just respond to that. I hope you're wrong, Cody. I want to see the Kings back in the playoffs, especially with these players. De'Aaron Fox is so good. It's interesting. Think about Fox and Sabonis are probably the two most underrated and overlooked players in the entire NBA. These are players that could and should be all stars every single year. And I think that they make a dynamic duo, and and there's some other players that can make for that third. And the recent trend has been 3 good players on the team, and you're a championship contender.
Yeah, I mean, it's one thing if this was a baseball style playoffs where you only have like the 3 division leaders and and then 2 wild cards. If you only have 5 teams going to the playoffs, then I can see an argument for the Kings falling out. But there's 10 teams from the conference that go to the playoffs. Technically, there's those 4 in the play-in games, ranked 7 through 10, and the top 6 get an automatic bye into the playoffs. I just do not see the Kings falling off so drastically that they fall below 10th. But
it's a fair
Oh,
point.
you're right.
It is a fair point, and I would agree with Dustin saying that it would be really exciting to see someone, see them get in the playoffs when it's been that long. I'm not saying that's not true. It would be really exciting. I just have to see it to believe it.
yeah. Okay, let's talk about the Brooklyn Nets. So the question here was, are the Nets the most toxic team in the NBA? We've had a couple of things recently with the Nets. We've got Steve Nash, who was there for a season and a half. Was it 2.5 seasons? I'm trying to remember when he was hired. Anyway, he was there.
1.5, yeah.
What was that, Dustin? Was it 1.5?
Just one.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah.
And there's a collection of egos that he had to deal with, and that no coach should have to deal with as much as he did. There was Kyrie Irving and Kevin Durant, and then the general manager gave him a big present by bringing over Ben Simmons. All of these very ego-centered players that Steve Nash had to deal with, and then they were losing a lot of games early in the season. They've done a lot better now, but you've got a lot of me first guys going on here. And then Steve Nash essentially is fired by Kevin Durant, right? And showing the power that players have that coaches don't sometimes, when you're at least the player of the level of Kevin Durant. But this is a collection of horrible teammates and creating a toxic waste dump in Brooklyn. And so I want to hear your thoughts, and then I'll finish it up.
It's my response. I feel bad for Steve Nash. Right. It just wasn't the right situation, and it just unfortunate with how he had to leave. But there have been a lot of players who immediately transitioned to being a coach within a few years, like Nash did, and it doesn't work out, and they're out, and then they come back and become a very good coach. I think of Jason Kidd, who Steve Nash and Jason Kidd, that's the perfect pairing. Jason Kidd right now with Dallas. Hey, who I forget, who did Jason Kidd first coach for right out of his first coaching position? The Brooklyn Nets. Fired. Now in Dallas and leading one of the best teams, the best players and best teams that we're probably going to see this year in the Western Conference. And so I hope to see Steve Nash come back. But going back to the players, I think in 2017, we kind of learned a little bit about Kevin Durant when he left the Thunder and went to the league's best team in the Warriors in order to get himself a championship. And he got 2 championships out of it. And it's just one of those things. It's just, I feel disrespect for the game. And that's continued, where it's very, very me-centered. Very player first, want to get my championship, my accolades first, as opposed to team success. And that's definitely shown true in Brooklyn, where he's not interested in creating a true team, but interested in what does this give me?
Yeah. I'll just add to that. Definitely also feel sorry for Steve Nash. I don't have a whole lot to talk about it, but what I have noticed is looking at those players, those egos, KD and Kyrie Irving, a lot of the players have some serious issues going on outside of the league. Just as an example, Irving and I believe it was Irving, with anti-Semitism and all that stuff going on. I'm not going to talk a lot about that, but a lot of these issues going on the outside of the league. When we're talking about, these are huge players, megastars, who, when you're on this kind of platform with this kind of um, power to yourself, you got to be a better leader than what you're showing. And I think that along with their egos and their, the whole me attitude is not creating a good team atmosphere. And that's, yeah, it's toxic. That's just all I have to say about that.
Yeah. Yeah, I was going to say the same thing about Kyrie Irving, and first his stance. I get standing up for your personal morals. I get that, but when it gets to a point where you're missing more than half of your team's games, and uh, because of his stance against vaccines and all of that, you get to a point where you're me first and not team first, and um, things like that. I think Kyrie Irving is abysmally stupid, but he's also a flat earther, by the way, if you didn't know that.
It's amazing he went to Duke.
Right. But legacies are such fickle things, and I'm talking about legacies here. Kind of switching over. You mentioned, Dustin, about Kevin Durant going over to the Warriors, and one player doesn't win a championship for a full team, and that's what Kevin Durant was thinking he was going to do, right? Team sports are team sports for a reason. I think the fact that I lost all respect for Kevin Durant, for example, when he chased that ring at the expense of his legacy. I loved him in OKC, and he seems to have lost all sense of what being on a team means and what legacy means, because a ring seems to mean you have established a legacy, right? And I hate that mindset. And it's now he's trying to do the same thing in Brooklyn, and now he's trying to lead the team. For also, he wanted a different coach, or he wanted a coach out, and he had the power, I guess, to be able to do it. And I've lost all respect for Kevin Durant, and I never had any to begin with for Kyrie Irving. So,
All right. Well, we don't have a whole lot of time left, but we'll whatever we don't get to, we can get to next week. But talking a little bit about Kevin Durant, one of the topics we want to talk about was megastars. What's going on with the aging megastars of the last decade? They're struggling teams such as KD, Russell Westbrook, LeBron James, Damian Lillard, Kawhi Leonard, or others of other sports or teams that you know of. What's going on with that? Let's hear your thoughts.
So first, I want to talk about kind of the pattern that we see here. It's interesting that you have a sure Hall of Famer. Let's use LeBron James, Hall of Famer in the GOAT conversation, and the last couple years can't make it to the playoffs. A star-studded team can't make it to the playoffs, and it's one of those things of is this hurting the legacy? Is what's going on? Of course he's almost 40 years old. Is it an age thing? And I think about all the players in the past as they get near retirement, that it's very common for them not to get into the playoffs in the last several seasons. Whether that's Kobe Bryant, is probably another good example. Lakers were bottom team in the last few seasons. I also think about Michael Jordan on the Wizards, struggling teams. And then so often these players bounce around to different teams trying to get to the playoffs, trying to do something, and just whether it's the age or the reverse age, these new players that have the step on them that's in the way. I want your thoughts on that.
Yeah. I also think about NFL stars that were aging as well. And sometimes you think about these legacies of players and you ignore their decline when they are winning games. Peyton Manning, his last year in Denver, didn't play very well. He won a Super Bowl because of the players around him. He got enough to throw to some of those really great receivers, but he didn't have the arm strength anymore to get it 50 yards down the field. He was playing dinking and dunking, and he was going to retire no matter what after that season, whether he won a championship or not. He didn't have anything left. Drew Brees, the same way. He never threw anything down the field anymore. And I think a lot of these aging megastars, they've created these legacies that we sometimes feel bad